Last of Us from a dollar store. That's what I thought of Days Gone when I saw it first. And that was one of the reasons why I never played it on PS4. But I was wrong. It's neither Last of Us, it's nor dollar store. But the question is this, is Days Gone worth it to buy right now or not? And as always, as every single one of my reviews, I'm not gonna be wasting your time talking 10 to 15 minutes about nothing just to give you a yes or no answer. I'm going to give you an answer right away. And the answer is yes. Days Gone is worth it. If you're watching this while the game is on sale, it is absolutely worth it. It's actually great and amazing zombie game, probably one of the best, and a game that had one of the most interesting mechanics in any zombie games, hordes, and it was absolutely beautiful. But it suffered a lot and it was its own fault. But without details, none of this matters. So now let's talk about Days Gone. Before talking about ups and downs, what was good or what was bad, we need to talk about what this game actually is. In short, Days Gone is an open world zombie action adventure game. And of course, just like with every other game like this one, it has an RPG elements. You're playing in a new future where a zombie apocalypse has happened, and your goal is to survive and complete your own personal goals in this world. Don't worry, I'm not gonna be giving you any spoilers in the game, not even the smallest ones. And not gonna lie, when I first launched the game, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all because the game has extremely slow start. For an open world zombie game whose main marketing gimmick was having hordes, this was surprisingly slow game. And yeah, actually it will take some time until you will see hordes, not even talking about taking them on. And I didn't like the game first few hours. It was slow, it was sluggy, it had a lot of half-assed exposition, and I didn't like it at all, and most people do not as well. And it was bad not because it was grindy or it had similar open world shtick like Ubisoft games, it was just boring. It was just way too slow and way too empty. But it won't last long. After just few hours, game opens up, and man, it should have done it before because it is an incredibly interesting and fun game. World is absolutely vast and huge. It is very big, and Oregon looks absolutely beautiful. With its forest, deserted roads, and open field, it looks absolutely stunning. Usually one large open world has one big issue, and it's emptiness. In many games you just see this large open place with absolutely nothing to do in between the points of interest. Here, it's not a case. You see, because the game is open world and you are very heavily focused on crafting and resource gathering, every place, every single small place has its own loot, has its own story, and is completely packed with a lot of different things. And the entire world feels very full and very densely packed. Just traversing, exploring world is extremely interesting and fun experience. But it's not just that you can just explore everything. You kind of need as well. Because especially if you're gonna play on a higher difficulties, you will need a lot of loot and you will need a lot of resources in order to move forward, because you cannot really move forward without resources, because this is not just a zombie game, it's kind of like a biker game as well. You see, in this game you have a bike, and this bike is your primary mode of transportation in this vast world. You simply cannot move far without a bike. Not just because the world is big, the world is also quite densely packed with enemies as well, and fighting everyone everywhere at the same time is not really good. So you need bike, and your bike is your trusted companion. But your bike is not immortal. It's fuel to move around, so you actually need to scavenge for fuel. It's not really tough if you're gonna use this battering ram because it's a bike, it's a motorcycle, how many hits it can take before it will break down, so you actually need to fix it constantly. And you actually have kind of like a separate skill trees and separate upgrade system for your bike as well. So having a bike is completely different game mechanics, which is incredibly fun and interesting. And speaking of hitting enemies, man, this game has a very interesting combat system. You see, in this game you're mainly going to fight two types of enemies. Well, one of them are zombies and another one are human enemies. Well, zombies are of course your melee attacking enemies, and humans are basically your ranged enemies or sometimes melee as well. And combat is actually quite deep. You see, you have usually two approaches. First is of course guns blazing, which you always can do if you have enough resources, if you have enough ammunition, or you can go stealth. Approaching many situations with stealth is very important because any gunshots attract zombies. So if you're fighting irregular humans, if they will start shooting or you will start shooting, you might have to fight on two fronts. So you don't really want that. So stealth is important. But human enemies is nothing spectacular. We have seen human combat billion times already. What's interesting are zombies, because zombies have very interesting AI. You see, it's not like in Last of Us with a bunch of different evolutions of cordyceps and things like that. It's rather straightforward. There are just infected humans and there are just a few different variations, very few, and you are not meeting them very often. The most common ones are regular zombies and zombie kids. Yes, there are zombie kids in here. And those zombie kids are actually quite weak, or rather I should call them juvenile zombies. That will be more correct name. And And those two types of zombies fight very differently. Well, regular zombies are just charging you straight forward and chasing you, and you cannot really outrun them, and you cannot really hide them because they will actually follow you and just climb on everything, and they're very, very persistent. But those juvenile zombies, what they usually do is they usually run away and hide away from you, or get closer to other juvenile zombies. They're usually climbing on roofs and trying to hide you, and they're not actually really that big of a threat, unless they will charge you in numbers. And speaking of numbers, that's where game's AI shows itself, because zombie AI in this game is absolutely beautiful. You see, in many games what happens is that zombies usually just charge you. Everyone is trying to charge you in a straight line. They're disregarding each other, and then you have to fight and kill them one by one on a straight line. But in here, it's not. Those zombies, especially on hordes, are acting as a single organism, and they're actually flanking you, getting around you, and trying to attack you from all the different sides, and they're not trying to disrupt each other. And this way, it makes them much more difficult to fight with. And in high numbers, they're also usually like behaving like a liquid, like going around obstacles or over the obstacles, which makes it extremely terrifying as well. And don't get me wrong, no matter how far you are into the game, no matter how much ammunition you have, no matter how strong and powerful you are, you will never be able to take on large hordes of zombies by yourself head on. You will actually need to be very cautious and use a lot of tactics and strategy in order to fight them, and use environments and everything around you in order to kill them, every one of them one by one. And the hordes are not small as well. They start from dozens zombies and go to up to few hundred, and they are extremely tough to fight with. And this is not your regular boss fight. You're fighting literally against a swarm, which is absolutely terrifying again, and very, very amazing thing to see and amazing thing to accomplish when you can actually defeat them. And fighting those enemies is incredibly fun and interesting. But what about the story? This is a story game, right? Well, to be fair, at the beginning, story did not really hook me. It was really run-of-the-mill thing about the zombie apocalypse and loved ones and things like that, a brotherhood, and it was not really something that hooked me. But as it progressed, as it continued, as it showed up some revelations, it got me interested. It is something that you don't really see a lot of times in a lot of different zombie games. It was incredibly interesting what it uncovered and where the story went, what types of choices your character has to make. And not gonna lie, in the beginning, story was not great, but later got me really hooked and really interested. Granted, it's not on Last of Us levels, it's not on many other great story games level, but it's still rather good enough. But everything can be forgiven and can be forgotten if the price is right or wrong. So how much game will actually cost you? Well, game actually has the base price of $50, but no one's gonna pay $50 for that. On a sale, game can actually cost as low as $12. So is this game worth it for $12? Are you kidding me? Open world game with a great combat, great story, and great world. So why wouldn't it be? $12 for the great 50-hour game? Sign me up any day of the week. And by the way, the biggest issue with the launch of the game was its technical state. Today, on a PC, it worked absolutely flawlessly for me. Granted, there is one issue, one very important issue that I didn't hear in a lot of different places, but it was kind of issue for me, and it was controls. You see, a game is made to be controlled, well, with a controller. It's not really made to be controlled with a keyboard and mouse, and you will actually quickly see that. Granted, it's not a big issue in a combat. Moving around and in a combat, it's completely fine. Keyboard and mouse is fine. Where it will show up is when you're driving a motorcycle. It's not good. Driving a motorcycle with the keyboard and mouse is not as fun as it is with the controller. So yeah, so that's an issue that you should understand. Again, it's not a big issue, it's not a big deal, it was not a game breaking for me, but it's still issue nonetheless. Overall, Days Gone is a great open world zombie game that everyone should enjoy. Then don't let its bad launch to ruin your gaming enjoyment. And this video is sponsored by you. By you just being here, you help this channel immensely and help it to move forward and to exist. And if you want to do just a little bit more, you can always subscribe to the channel to not miss videos like this one, and like and comment on this video to help it move upwards in an algorithm. And if you want to contribute even more, you can always become a channel member by hitting the join button and gaining some exclusive perks. Thank you again for just being here, and now back to the video. And by the way, if you like Days Gone, there's high chance, of course, that you will like Red Dead Redemption and want to hear how it holds up in 2024. You can watch a video about that right here. And you might also like survival games, so you can watch my in the list of entire 27 survival games right here. Don't forget to subscribe right here as well. This is me for today, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care.